One-on-one with a cognitive neuroscientist. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Meditation made simple. Visit headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I wanted to spend a little time with someone who has become sort of a regular on MacVoices Live. We've talked to her before individually, but that was before she started providing us lots of opinions and thoughts. And frankly, I've been intrigued by the angles that she comes at some of our topics with. So I want to welcome Brittany Smith here for a one-on-one session. Brittany, welcome. And we're catching you on vacation.
You are, yeah.
Well, thank you for making time. You heard what I just said, and I really mean it. You and I got to know each other at WWDC before the great lockdown, and I've been really intrigued with some of the observations and comments and opinions you've expressed on MacVoices Live about whatever subject we were talking about. You're a tech person, obviously, but I also want to ask you to just go over your background again, and then we'll examine why you look at things the way you do.
All right.
So what's your background?
Education-wise, I have 4 degrees because apparently I can't get enough. My first one is in film production, like actual film, celluloid that you touch. And then my second to my bachelor's degrees are in child development and psychology, and my master's degree is in cognitive neuroscience.
Okay, that's quite a diverse little set of things. Where did the film degree come from?
That was what I wanted to do in high school. I was always making movies.
Really? With celluloid?
No, I used a video camera.
Oh, okay.
But I really wanted to get my hands on real film, so I went to such an old school program that they had celluloid. I cut it and taped it together. And for part of lockdown, my nephew was with us, and I was like, well, let's make this film camp, and you're going to learn about film and video. And I got out some of the old films and let him touch them where the tape holds the 2 pieces of celluloid together.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit of old school going there. Interesting. So the cognitive neuroscience, I guess, is the thing that from where I sit, that seems to be what you draw on most for some of your comments on MacVoices Live. And I guess you seem to view using technology or the technology uses or a lot of the things from a completely different angle than the rest of us. Do you think that's an accurate perception, or am I just being biased?
I think it's somewhat different. I've encountered other folks who have more of a similar use case to myself. I just really believe that our relationship with our devices should be very positive, and that there are a lot of things we can employ to be more mindful of that relationship and what we really want out of it. And so I try to always cultivate that positivity and that mindfulness in how I interact with things.
Okay, so you just did it again. You talk about having a relationship with your devices.
Oh yeah, mine all have names. Don't yours?
No. Well, not sure what that says about you or me, but there's definitely a difference. But I don't think of it in those terms. And yet I know I've heard other people talk about that. But and yeah, we're laughing about the names, of course, but I think of them as just tools to do whatever it is I want to do right now, do it better, faster, more, quicker. And that's the way I look at it. Do you think though that other people see their devices as having a relationship with them?
I don't know if they would use that word, but even if you're looking at it as a tool, you want not just the best tool you can use, but you want it to work the way you want it to. If you're a chef, it doesn't matter how great your knives were when you got them. If you don't sharpen them, you're not going to like how that tool is working.
Interesting analogy.
And a lot of default settings are terrible. And and not good. And this is true for a few on iPhones and Macs too, that I don't think the default settings are appropriate. And so it's maybe not being the best tool that it could be at that point.
So I'm catching you cold, and I know that, but
yeah.
Can you give us an example?
News. The news app angers me on the regular. Notifications are on by default. You go and turn them off. It doesn't say, do you want them?
You mean the news app notifications?
The news app notifications, absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't think anyone should have notifications on for news unless you work in the news. Like, there's nothing time sensitive about that. It is not going to improve your overall happiness or life satisfaction to know instantly when something horrible happens in the news. Like, I mean, in our recent news, January 6th was a hard day for a lot of people. And I found out what happened the next day. And I had a way more productive January 6th than a lot of folks.
Okay, but do you think, I mean, I completely see your point, and I do not disagree with it necessarily. But on the other hand, there are people that feel the need to be connected all the time. And do you view that as a bad thing?
I think it can be a problematic thing. That sometimes that it gives a false sense of control. Like, doom scrolling is a term a lot of people didn't use before this last year that has now seeped into the vernacular of the more wider population. And they'd probably be happy you're not doing that, right? And have we all done it? We totally all have. But it might be better. My bigger issue actually is on the watch now, on the Siri watch face. You can't turn the news off of that face. The only way you can get it off is to delete the app from your phone, because you can't delete it from the watch by itself. Like, so the relationship with the news app, and I get why, it's because they have a service that they want to sell, and I totally get it. But anyway, that'd be one of those things that the default, as an example, does not please me.
Okay, that's a good example. To be clear, you say you can't get it off the watch face. You mean you can't get it off the app listing?
Yeah, there used to be. Actually, I meant the face. There used to be a setting for the Siri's watch face to not have the news app included in it, and that is no longer an option. And you can't delete the app from your watch. You can't delete all of the apps from your watch. The only way to get rid of it is to remove it from your phone.
Now, I'm looking at a watch face, and I don't see the news app on my watch face.
Not on your watch face, on the Siri watch face. Like where it pulls up stuff that's happening.
Excuse me.
Yeah, which is not my main face, but I use it occasionally. And I was like, wow, talk about the thing I would like you to never, ever, ever surface. And I can't turn it off except to delete it.
Okay. Since I don't use the Siri watch face, I guess that's why I've never noticed it.
I usually use it when timers are on because they have such bad options for timers, but that's a whole tangent.
So I'm using, the super sophisticated face. It'll be upside down, but you'll recognize it.
Yeah.
Okay, you do too. So that kind of kills my next question. I was going to ask if you're a minimalist kind of person when it comes to the interfaces and all.
I am for many interfaces. My complications are usually things of like, I want to go outside. What is outside going to do for me right now? And so it tells me UV index, temperature, if it's raining most of the time, but right now it's what's the temperature, air quality index and sunset, right? Like those are some of my main complications along with activity and stuff like that. So they're more, I don't interact with it a lot, but some days I choose it. And for my phone, I have been very minimal in the past.
We should have said at the outset that that right now your profession is as an ADHD or ADD coach, and I think that if that too has surfaced in some of our discussions. Most recently, we talked about the gamification of productivity on one MacVoices live episode, and you didn't seem to be real happy about that. And I'm curious why, because I agree with you. I don't think it's a great idea, but you seem to come at it from a different angle than I did.
Actually, I was in favor of it when it's used personally. If you're a gamification person, Jeff was bringing it up and saying that companies had been employing it, which is what I was trying to understand more about. And I use gamification all the time. Like, I have an embarrassingly complicated personal reward system that I use to bribe myself when I don't feel like doing things. I'm big on gamification. I just think it should be personal and tailored for, again, to have that better relationship with things. I've studied motivation and rewards a lot more personally than a lot of folks have. Just because I discovered this while I was a cognitive neuroscience student. So why not? Experiments on myself are my favorite kind. So, like, these little points of motivation, and everybody's motivation is going to be unique to you, right? Like, if you love your favorite fancy coffee and that's a good reward for you, that's great. But if somebody else doesn't like coffee, that doesn't help them.
Okay. So that, you mean, first of all, when you say personal, you mean self-managed
Individual.
Rewards? Individual.
Yes.
That are, okay.
Self-managed, but with knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting the way that I took that comment from Jeff and partially led to this conversation.
Yeah.
I can think of one utility that I use that I don't want to name it, not because I don't like it, because I really do, but I don't want anybody to take it negatively. But it gives me a monthly report on my use of it. There's another utility I use. It gives me a weekly report, and it compares me with some of my other friends that use the same thing. Now, I'm quick to tell you, I honestly don't remember how it found out that I'm friends with them and they are using it too. I don't know if I put that in. I don't know if it looked at my contacts like it shouldn't have, and if it did, it chose to do that. But I get that summary every week, and do I look at it? Of course I look at it, but I can also say I don't get stressed out. I mean, yeah, I'm a competitive person, so I want to be up there in the number 1, 2, or 3 spot, preferably the number 1. But I look at it and think, okay, I got to do better next week, and then I just blow it off and keep on doing what I was doing. So
yeah.
Does that mean it's not working on me, or I just have a better sense of not being driven by it?
If anything's not actually resulting in a behavior change and you want it to, right? Then that's a thing to take a look at. But sometimes it's just kind of interesting, unless you turn them off, you get a screen time report, right? Once a week, Sunday morning, there's a screen time report. Here how this last week has gone. And that is kind of interesting. You actually really have to dive in usually to get the kind of reports that really horrify you on a fundamental level.
Oh, good. They're just down there waiting for me. Thank you, Brittany.
Oh, yeah. The week I did a video for YouTube about screen time, I had a horrible week on that particular device. And I was like, oh my, this is actually truly horrifying. But I had to dig in, like just showing me my screen time and that notification, that's not enough, really. Okay,
well, for that example, I'm trying to get inside your head. What did you consider a horrifying week? That you'd spent that much time on the screen, or that
on a particular app?
On a particular app, I see.
And it was a really busy week.
And it was not an app that added to your productivity? It was a game. Oh, okay. So your iDevice called you out on it, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it did. But information alone does not necessarily change behavior. And that is an important thing to be aware of, right? Like you said, you get this competitive urge, but that it doesn't, later in the week, it doesn't seem to make any difference in what you actually do.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm not sure which one of us is on the couch at this point. You may be, or I may be, or we both may be. But it might influence me, that day to say, okay, I'm going to clean out some of this cruft and, get my ranking better. And then the week starts and what breaks loose, and I never get back to some of that. I do try to change my behaviors, but sometimes things get in the way.
Behavior change takes work. And sometimes we see that and it's not actually something we even should take on. Like, again, I don't know which tool this is, but like, let's say you actually had a lot of big work projects to work on and they didn't include whatever thing that app is for. You probably shouldn't have been working on it that week. Whereas if there's like, I need to exercise more or something like that, yeah, you probably will see benefit. But just saying I need to do it, even being horrified, you get some doctor's news or whatever, and people have that, like, I got to change. If while you've got that initial shock motivation, you don't actually take steps or make a plan that can alter your behavior in the long run, you sort of missed your window on that event's ability to have an impact. Because it takes plan, it takes motivation. For some people, it takes accountability, which is, a lot of things I do as a coach. Also making the plans and challenging people when they seem like they might not work for them. And yeah, those kinds of things. Because, by the way, life coaching is all about behavior change. It's a lot about it. No, we're ADHD coaching.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Headspace is meditation made simple. Have you tried meditation as a way to help you deal with the challenges of everyday life? Not to mention the challenges we have all faced and are continuing to face during these interesting times. I did, and quickly went the other direction because of all the ceremony, doctrine, and some of the physical demands. Frankly, I did not want to feel like a monk in training. If any of that fits with your own past experiences, then I urge you to set it aside and give Headspace a try. Headspace makes approaching meditation approachable. No poses, no rituals, no requirements. You do what you want to do on your schedule, and you decide what your goals are. Just answer that simple question, what do you want to achieve? And Headspace will automatically direct you to one of their ever-expanding library of meditations to help you get there. The app is simple and straightforward, as are the meditations. Want some statistics? Just 30 days of Headspace can lower your stress by 32%, and just 4 sessions can reduce burnout by 14%. 4 weeks of Headspace can increase focus by 14%, and only 3 weeks of use has been shown to cut aggression to negative feedback by 57%. Feeling down? Just 10 days of Headspace can improve your mood by 28%. That all sounds great, right? So why don't you give it a try and find out for yourself? You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/MacVoices. That's headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. That's the best deal offered right now, so head to headspace.com/MacVoices today. Thanks to Headspace for their support of MacVoices. Okay, and so we'll go down that path. So is that the way you help people change? You make plans for them, or try to help them enforce their plan? With them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, like, I can be telling somebody, you got to get on the elliptical like I do. This is not helpful if they hate the elliptical machine. Right? Like, so we make a plan. What I know is, hey, I've worked with a whole bunch of people whose brain overlap with you in these certain areas, this amount. And this, sometimes this works really well. Sometimes this works really well. And okay, so let's make it really specific. And you've been through the whole SMART goals thing, right? This is not a new phrase.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
sure.
Making sure it's fitting the criteria, and then knowing sometimes that somebody else is going to check in and say, hey, how's it going? But that's not what everybody needs. It's just, I was just saying, like, the reason I was set on behavior modification is that is a thing that I work on a lot.
Well, Listen, I think by the very virtue of us being technologists to one degree or another, that we are interested, again, by the nature of it, with productivity or improving, what we do, how we do it. And so this is a subject that keeps coming up on it seems like every show, especially the discussion shows, because it sort of boils down to that so much of the time, that are we getting what we need out of our devices? Are we getting what we need out of our software and services? And not just what we need, but what we want too. Mm-hmm. And that's where some of your observations have just come out of left field completely, because you see things. I go back to where we started with that relationship comment, that you see our relationship to productivity, I think, differently than a lot of us see our relationship to productivity.
Could be. I only know how I think, Chuck.
No, but you've dug into it as, I mean, you have a master's in it, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think it's really interesting to get your perspective on things. That, you know, maybe I've been surprised at times at things you've come at me with, and you make me step back and say, gee, you know, she has a point. I hadn't thought about it like that, and that's not always easy to do with our group, because there is a bit of consistency, I think, with the way that we approach things. So you're kind of a breath of fresh air, and also you bring a different perspective to it that I love. I love because you make us think.
Good. I like to do that.
Well, you do it, and I would encourage anyone that, you know, hasn't watched, either participated in MacVoices Live in the chat rooms, or watched the recorded versions, the edited versions that go out on the feed, to listen, and especially listen to where Brittany comes in, because she doesn't say a lot, but when she does, it's like we all kind of listen. And I know for me anyway, it pushes me back, and I think, wow, I hadn't thought about that. So,
You mean when I'm not just being snarky?
well, yeah, well, that kind of goes, but that's your personality. That's not your expertise, or maybe it is your expertise. I don't know. Brittany, any tips for folks that you can think of that? Again, I keep coming back to that phrase, to improve their relationships with their technology.
Number one, what do you want from it? Knowing what you want from your device. Why do you have it? Why did you decide to buy it? That can be your first place. And when you've got, there'll be more than one reason. You know, I need a phone, my old one broke is one, but like, you could have gotten a really cheap, different device. Like, why do you have it, and what purpose do you want it to serve? And then to just take a step back and start noticing, where are the places that might be getting in the way. If you bought it because you want to work on the go and on a, you know, fast, smart computer, and you find yourself, you know, spending all your time in YouTube, well, that's a thing to take a look at. And comparing, like, what do you want it to do with what is actually happening. It might help you figure out where some of those things are getting in the way. And then you can make an action plan. But without having that knowledge, without knowing why do you really want it, and then what do you want from it, and what is actually happening, and if that's not what you want, then we sort of have to start noticing those things and figuring out what's getting in the way from there. Or what frustrates you, and is there a way to fix it? A lot of people get annoyed at a notification every time, and it turns out it's easier than ever to make that go away. You can do it right from the notification itself. And, you know, this bugs me all the time. I bet there's something you can do about it, and then you'll be a little happier when you use your phone or your computer or whatever.
You know, that's a little thing, but that just happened to me this week. I installed a new app, wanted to try it out, and the notifications were just driving me crazy. And then I realized, okay, I don't have to delete the app. The app may be fine. It's just that it's demanding my attention, and I don't want it to. So I turned the notifications off, and now I'm very happy, and I'll probably continue to use that app. So yeah. It's a small example, but it's a really good one.
And it adds up. Like, if you notice, oh, I'm never getting back to people's texts, sometimes that means that you have too many of those little badges on, so you never see when there's a text. Or, you know, whatever you really want to be there, just remember all the other things you're getting could potentially be getting in the way. You don't notice notifications if your notification center is always full of things you don't look at. And you sort of go numb to them. The alarm fatigue is one I like to talk about a lot. They talk about it with nurses in a lot of the studies because it costs lives. But here it costs our attention and adds to our stress. And then you miss things that might actually be really important.
Wow. There's another one I would not have thought about, but you're right. As far as the nurses thing, that's
one of the biggest ones. If somebody says, yeah, I remind myself things, but I never look at it, the first thing I ask is, what do the rest of your notifications look like? And either you're using the alarm, the reminder inappropriately, like you never get rid of it or something like that. Or there's too many other notifications there and you just go numb after a while.
Hmm.
But numb doesn't mean it doesn't bother you. Numb just means you don't notice it or act on it.
And I mean, everything you're describing are things that I think we either all suffer from, we all suffer with, or we've suffered through.
It's just that the group that I work with is the most sensitive. It's not that nobody else has these issues. Like, if nobody's ever heard me, my definition of ADHD is extra human. Like, all of those cool, amazing, creative, problem-solving, adventuring things that human beings do, we do more of those. But also all of the things of like, oh, how could I be so dumb and lock my keys in my car for the 5th time this week? We're going to do that more. Until you have a system, and then you're fine. And so it's just extra. It's just more. And more in the extremes. And that's really the only difference. The things that I usually yammer on about, they're good for everybody. It's just sometimes a necessity for my people.
So one other thing I want to make sure we got to here is you've just started a new project or a new service. I'm not quite sure. I'll let you explain how it is and what it is. But I think it's interesting, especially in the challenging times we're in right now, that you would start this and be doing it the way you're doing it. So tell us about your new guild.
So I started with a colleague of mine, the ADHD Guild, and it is partly to find your people, to find people who are wanting to do something similar to you. It's very productivity oriented. We offer a lot of things. Basically, my colleague and I have been coaching for a long time. Our practices became full. And we were really brainstorming how to help more people, but still get the benefits that they're seeing with individual coaching. And with individual coaching, one of the big things is accountability and really getting the vibe of, oh my gosh, it's not just me who's struggling with these things. Somebody else gets that, even though our neurotypical friends think, how hard is it to call the dentist? Like, this is a group of people who understand, no, the way our brains work, like taking on giant project and making a phone call are about the same to us, like in terms of how they feel. And so it's somebody who can celebrate the things that other folks might not understand, like spouses, families, and to get that, but also accountability and more frequently. So the idea is we have a weekly team meeting, it is like group coaching, but like with an accountability and productivity focus of this is what I want to do, setting SMART goals, that are easy to accomplish. And with an online community on Discord where you can say, you post your goals, and these are these things that I am really excited about, or, oh my gosh, I just did this thing, and people can celebrate, and you can touch base in between meetings. And some, what they call body doubling, which I think is the worst term, but it's you're basically co-working with somebody else, like on Zoom. And so that people can touch base more in between. And then with once a month coaching. So I want to make that plan to exercise or whatever. Here's a person I can really make it with who is good at making plans with people. And so it has a community vibe, but also some one-on-one time. And we're really hoping that this will be just the right mix for a lot of folks who are wanting to get more done and have some support doing it.
So is this being done online? I'm sure it is.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
This colleague is one of my best friends, and we've never met in person.
That's interesting.
We're gonna have meetings online, and our Discord is online, and it's all online. So you can be anywhere as long as you can make the meetings.
So do I just have to have an interest in this, or improving myself, or solving my problems, or do I need a formal ADHD diagnosis?
You do not need a formal diagnosis. If you've even heard some of the things of, oh my gosh, my spouse gets so mad when I, lock myself out of the house, and this is the thing that happens on the regular, and you're kind of suspicious you have ADHD, give us a call. You can schedule a consultation with one of us, and we can talk about it if you're not sure. If you even think you have ADHD, you're probably right. Like, if you've read over the things, you're like, oh, that's me. Or your kid just got diagnosed, and you're like, oh, all these things the doctor's talking about sound like me. we don't actually need any formal diagnoses. We just want to make sure that everyone there feels safe in talking about the things that we're sometimes embarrassed about talking to our neurotypical pals. And that's all.
Okay. So if somebody out there really is intrigued by this conversation and this part of it and would like to get involved with your guild, what's the best way for them to reach you or do so?
Yeah, you can go to my website, conquer.consulting, and it's all over there. We start March 3rd with our first team meeting. There is an early bird special, not sure when this comes out, through this coming Wednesday. And yeah, we're hoping that other people like it as much as we think they will. And it's in a pilot test, so it's going to be a 3-month pilot. And if everybody loves it, we'll keep going after the 3 months. Yep.
But from what you just, from what you just said, there is a cost associated with it, which
there
I would
is.
expect to. Yeah, well, this is a professional situation, so.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So it's $400 a month for the pilot. The early bird is $100 off of the first month. If somebody really, that's totally outside your realm and you still want to get some support, I'll give Chuck a link to a nonprofit organization that I recommend a lot of people try out. This would be for some folks who've maybe tried that and want something a little more on the professional side and a little less peer support run. Yeah. There's just a different vibe between the two. And if you love the peer support kind, awesome. It's way cheaper. You should do that. If you're looking for something more on the professional side, then that would be our guild.
Okay. And I guess I factor some of those things differently than other people, but I look at it and say, okay, what would it cost me to go and get the help or the services elsewhere? Here, I can do it safely. I'm going to get 2 professionals that are running this, not just one.
Yep.
And there's so many benefits to it. So, you take a shot at it. That's not a bad price if you really are in. It's going to weed out the people that are just like casually, yeah, I think I'll drop by and see what it's about. No,
it will
need to be
do that.
serious
Yep.
about this. And that's what you.
And one of the things you get with that, because I've run the peer-led support groups too, is you do get high turnover just because there's not as much skin in the game. And if you really want to have a community that's longer lasting, having more skin in the game is a better way to do that.
Good point. Good point. For both you, your colleague, as well as the members of the guild.
Yep.
Because they don't want people in there that are just not serious about it. I wouldn't think. I would think that would detract from the potential results.
Yeah, it can. And what the things I've seen in coaching really are, the more somebody puts into it, really the more they get out. And that is effort. But for my private coaching, I offer a sliding scale, but I don't ever do pro bono because the research is really, really good that you need some skin in the game to really invest as much of your time and energy into it and then get as much out of it.
Yeah. That's true of a lot of things, but what are you going to do? Brittany, thank you. I've wanted to do this for a while, and especially the other day, the one conversation we had on MacVoices Live really cemented me and said, I've got to call you and just get some time with you, not professionally, but but some one-on-one time to talk a little bit about this. And folks, I absolutely encourage you. And this is not just promotion of MacVoices Live, but it's promotion of Brittany and the whole team, because we have a group that comes together and they examine issues from a lot of different angles. And Brittany's is the one that's absolutely unique. I think every time she says something, I think, wow, that's new. So. Brittany, thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you for the time on vacation. I hope we didn't steal too much of it, but go enjoy yourself. And when you're ready to get back in the saddle, MacVoices Live is there waiting for you.
All right. Excellent. I'll talk to you then.
Terrific. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We'll be back with more soon. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, Consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.